Exactly, excellent.
Or we got it a couple of minutes in, so and I'm going to switch back to the camera here. Welcome all of you in the room and in the digital space over here as well. We're so glad to have you here again, that we didn't scare you away last time, 2 weeks ago. I'm so happy that you guys are here. We were so thrilled to see the response after the last time. And I really want to share this with the Women in AI community, because last week we had a conversation with actually the CTO of the White House and a Swedish, is one of our senior advisors in Washington. And he said, "Oh, so Sweden is doing a lot within in gender and sustainability and kind of really fighting the good fight." And then they said that, yeah, and we saw that Women in AI had a fantastic event in Sweden and in Stockholm that really inspired more to go into the fields. And both me and Raquel were sitting in the room like, yes, we know. We know a couple of people that were involved. So this is also one of the fun things, is that it's getting attention outside of our own networks, and also that by being here, by talking about it, you inspire others to really get involved, to start the discussion. And that is one of the reasons why we do this. So please continue and continue the discussion, continue asking questions. And we had a great remark about also letting in the chat inside, so that you guys can take a better part of what's going on online as well. Because right now there's 69 or 70 people online, and I think there will be a couple more joining. But today, the agenda for today, we're going to talk. We've already done the mingle. We're a bit late in the schedule because there was so much energy in the room and also online. But today we're going to talk about real-world AI, and we have a specialist, Justine, that's going to talk about her work at Accenture and talking about the European perspective on AI. So we will do a couple of group discussions. We will also do a bit of a repetition from the last time, because repetition is the mother of all knowledge, and talk about real cases. It's online in the mingle. Already we started mentioning a couple of documentaries or a couple of public discussions that are going on right now. Amongst other ones we mentioned were the document Utifrån documentary on SVT Play, who shares the view on the Amazon journey, or Jeff Bezos' journey with Amazon, which is really super interesting, a bit scary, but the perspective of being 25 years ahead of time, just because he understood really early on from his investment background that you need to invest in data, but you also need to understand what types of problems you're going to solve. So that is really what we're going to focus on today, problems. So we will do a small check-in in a couple of minutes. We will go through the repetition and the AI, about what we did last time. We will have a discussion about the definition of AI again, so that we really hammer it in. And then we will go into the real-world AI problems, or the solutions we see being applicable today. And then we will have Justine on stage. But first, I would like Sophie to join me on stage as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And first of all, we want to say congratulations to you. Today you're definitely worth a big round of applause for what you're doing with Sana Labs and education. So I want to.
Thank you so much. So maybe I can explain. So first, hi everyone. I'm Sophie, and I've been part of this together with Peter and Raquel in driving this initiative. So I represent Women in AI together with several other ladies who are here from Women in AI, but I lead the education part of Women in AI. And Women in AI is a non-for-profit global organization working towards gender inclusive AI. And just first, then I go to Sana Labs. I was in the digital room last week, which was great to see so many of you there. So today it feels fantastic to also be in the physical room. And last week we started sharing a lot of our LinkedIn profiles, and everyone wanted to connect online, which was great to see. And that is really what Women in AI is all about. So we have a Slack workspace. If you're not in there already, I'm going to invite you to it. And we're also going to have a specific channel for the AI crash course where we can discuss topic related questions to the course that we're taking and other things that we bring up in our meetups. And then when I'm not running Women in AI, I work for an AI and learning company called Sana Labs. And today we had our biggest event of the year where we launched our vision for the future of workforce learning. So stealing some time for Sana Labs branding, but we work with upskilling and reskilling of the future workforce and how AI can make this more effective, both from a learner perspective, an admin perspective as a manager, but also for the author who's creating courses. And we had two big events today. One which just finished now at 5:30, which I've been running. So I might leave a little bit early for my dinner later that people are meeting me. But this is what I was going to say about Women in AI, and join the Slack space later. Thank you.
And we might mention the course we're doing on for everyone in this group.
Okay, yes, yeah. One more thing. Yeah. Okay, so some more marketing for Sana Labs. So together with AI Sweden, we're actually launching a course called AI for Leaders, which is based on an AI for Leadership handbook that Piltarian wrote a while back, and it's a great course, personalized to each and every individual's level about what you should know in AI for leadership. So I discussed this with one of you just before, that it's very important to have the leadership perspective, and that leaders know what to do and how to implement AI. So I'll invite you all to that afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bonus for being a part of it. And talking about AI Sweden, we love to team up with good initiatives. We love to team up with startups and corporates to really put AI out there, to really make AI happen. Accelerate applied AI in Sweden. That's why we exist. And education is a crucial part. Being in the dialogue is a crucial part of this. So the broad AI training, and now we have a really good course for leaders so that they can take action. So if you're in the field of AI and working with AI already, make the management team that's not in AI, take the course. If you're in a management position, take the course so that you can force other ones to start working with it. But why you should work with it is you have to solve solutions. And we will go into that later on. But first, we're going to do a check-in because we want to know who's here and who's not here. So team up, either 2, 3, or 4 persons. Do a check-in. What's your name? What's your favorite emoji? The most common one used, and why is it there? And since our last meetup, have you learned something new? And I will just to give you an example. These are my favorite emojis. I've heard a lot about using the monkey, but still my favorite. I think it's because I'm a bit ironic. And then it's my weekend emoji, and then it's my either LinkedIn or startup emojis, because I really vote for startup that's rocket ships. And also, on another note, one thing we're going to talk about today is a book recommendation. I mean, we won't talk about the book, but we will talk about what it's about. And it's about solving problems, finding the problems to solve, finding the not hardest problems maybe, but the most crucial ones. So that's what I've learned. And now it will be your turn. So turn to your neighbor online. I will split you into breakout rooms. Out of 4 and 4, and I think it's going to be a couple of ones. So in the live room, you can start now.
Vi turn around. Vi kanske kör på svenska.
Det kanske vi göra.
Vi kör alla fyra. Och nu var okej, jag tror ni måste skriva emoji. Den jag använder mest såklart är stjärnan. Det är alltid stjärnan med exakt. Och så kör jag alltid där när man ser bra eller jag har med den här. Alltså jag skulle kunna köra tummar. Since our last meetup have we learned something new? Ja, det var jag var inte gått på kursen förut. Då skulle man sitta och räkna på olika beslutsvägar. Ja, enklare övningar för att förstå konceptet av fungerar. Så det kan jag säga, så lärde jag mig någonting som leder tankesätten. Så det var kul. Ja, men det är lugnt. Det man får göra på sin egen tid. Ja.
Och min bästa emoji, jag tror att den jag använder vanligast är nog samma som den här rocket ship grejen som nog är lite, kan betyda för mig lite allting, bara bra. Eller nu kör vi. Man blir ganska stor tycker jag av de här de vanligaste.
Ja, men den går aldrig
man går ju sällan.
Och då kommer det så här.
Då är det som bara in i det. Jag ser det är väldigt spännande med 3D-visualisering. Man kan kombinera inte AI-relaterat. Jag lärde mig att köpa ett hus av eller oköpet. Går och master i vissa klausuler. Det är också värt att man ska göra.
Jag tog mig klocka. Alltså jag gillar ju händerna. Mycket den där, mycket den där. Bro. Har vi möten nu? Jag gillar handroll. Och jag läser inte hela jag tänker ju vara väldigt ambitiös att göra. Men vad båda för eller för jag menar
jag kan säga att hus
men jag har ju lärt mig en massa jag har lärt mig utvecklas inom allt. Men jobba lite.
exakt samma program.
Och samma här, det var jävligt kanske lite mindre. Så kan man mindre.
Just nu jag jobbar med att göra Sverige säkert.
Men det är kul att det för 2 år sedan så har vi startat upp en AI-enhet på och då så var du och jag och idag är vi 20. Vi hjälper alla att bli fantastiskt framgångsrika inom AI.
Men vi två är just fast i att jobba med säkerhet i Sverige.
Men det låter kul. Alltså, jobba med alltså lite sånt. Det är alltså sektorer. Ja, research, finance, och jobbar ni lite på implementerar de AI? Ja, men det är väldigt
Där. Hey guys, I was just wondering if the people with the keyboard could mute.
Det är kul att sitta lite värld. Alltså, det är ändå erfarenhet när man det blir ändå så ses man bara sammanhang. Det kan bli det alltså för att det varit ja. Ja, men lite just där med att stilen, samma, och det är väl ofta så alltså de som känner varandra så här
Nej, vi kör interaktiv session.
exakt. Jag öppnar upp så riktigt lika.
We will finish the online breakout rooms in 15 seconds. Ivana, do we have any
Yes.
interesting learnings from last time from your group?
We have a question. A question from chat is how to get a certificate for taking the course.
Yes, that is a very valid question. I posted a link in the. That's good for everyone to know because you want university credits in this as much as I do. It's through Linköping University. You take the course and then you will get like a diploma. And then you can use the link in the chat. Could you go into Linköping University and apply, and then they ship that up with the email address you link to your account. So, and then you will get the insane number of 2 university credits within elements of AI. But that's about just the start. And just to let people know, Reactor actually released the second course, the B course, to follow up this today. Either it was yesterday or today. So now that's available as well. And we will have the Sana Lab course. So there will be a lot of courses, and we will also add the Sana Lab course in our playlist, learning playlists, so that you can really join it, because we have, now we're in the second session. We're still very broad in the area of AI. We will go talk about a lot about problems today, why we need to solve them. And then next time we will go more into the depth of AI, more technical part of AI. So machine learning and neural networks, we will go through. I know we will go into the GPT-3 and the insane amount of data in the data sets, and we'll be more technical, basically. And then the future of AI on the 18th of November. We also have, if you're interested, it's the same dates as the Sweden Innovation Days. And we will, on Monday there, we will do or Tuesday on the 17th of November.
Hoćeš, samo mi ostavi nešto. Jedite šta god želite, samo mi ostavi nešto da mogu ja da jedem. Probaj jedno I drugo ako hoćeš.
I want to say Russian, but my Polish is really. So we will go through these steps, and I've heard some comments about the philosophical side of AI or the ethical side of AI, which is just as this moment when the political setting in the world is in an interesting state. So we will talk about that. What is AI now? How we will see in the future. So that's the setup. And if you haven't registered, Elements of AI, and now you can also take the B course. Last time we set up a drive, a public drive, so people can access all of the material and all of the learning playlists, and also to, maybe we've talked about that now, but write comments. If you have questions or comments that you don't want to say out loud in this room, you can take it in the drive session. And the learning playlist is there. So repetition is really important. What is AI? Last time we tried to define AI, and I also want to share an insight what I've learned during the last, because the discussion repetition is always good, and the discussion we had made me go into even more about the definition of intelligence. And then on the list, Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind, had a really interesting definition. They wrote the paper, I think it's 3 years ago, about intelligence, about it being so hard that we're talking about AI but not having a definition of intelligence. And then their definition is probably the best one I've heard. It's about an agent that is smart enough to reach goals in different types of environments. So, and that's our specialties as humans. So even we had a discussion in the online room earlier about disruption and disruptive AI, but still we need to understand that we are humans. We have fantastic capabilities of solving goals and being smart in different types of environment, and AI is not there now. It's not there yet. We don't know if it will be there, but probably Justine is going to talk a bit more about that. But AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is far down the road, but having agents or AI that solves different types of problems, having AI-ness and combine different types of technologies that can solve autonomous driving, for example. So really think about agents and a combination of agents solving things so that we can reach goals. We had the discussion last time, and what we really want to do is combine, we want to gather material for what you think and the development you do in this field. So we will use Menti today as well. We will talk about this. This is the question: how should we define AI? So the question for Menti this time is, how do you define AI now? And we will have one more question: is why do we need AI? I will produce some breakout rooms again for the online session. So the question is, why do we need AI? And we will focus on problem solving. We will go into the major problems we need to solve. So think about it in that way. Why do we need AI? And it's time for a new group discussion.
Should we switch up the groups here?
Yes.
Or how did you do it last time? Yeah.
So it will be new groups in the online room, and hopefully new groups even here as well. Yes, of course. You can sit wherever. Just feel like the kitchen is really good. It's really good to sit in the kitchen. Yeah, yeah. So as a team. Yeah.
important and healthcare, I think you have a lot of like all of the around
both, I would say, efficient and effective.
Do you want to do this?
Usually nice either, so I think I really do
Still done strong. What should we do? What should we do?
We're closing the online breakout rooms in 10 seconds.
Oh no, it's gone.
Ivana, did we have some interesting findings, or Raquel, did we have some interesting findings online?
Yes, on how to use AI.
Yeah.
We question, yeah, and we said that one of our thoughts was around optimizing the human abilities and really using AI to be able to take data-driven decisions for planning, forecasting, and so on. So we thought that there was a lot of uses within AI techniques, but we also said that it's really, we need to think about how the models are built, with all the bias, the data, and so on, to be able to truly understand what we are looking at and what we are taking decisions on. But we believe in that AI is good, so we will be able to use AI for a lot of things.
And we will go through the answers.
Very good. Wait.
Please have a seat again.
Juliana, do you have anything that you would like to add?
About the bias discussion, I think it was very interesting when you mentioned about bias and so much effort that needs to be done so machines can fix the bias, because machine only learn about data. So if it has always been in a certain way, machine will learn and think that that way is the right way. So it takes a lot of manual input to correct data. I loved when you mentioned the bias as well. It's a field that deserves attention in the AI. So we build something that will be for the common benefit and not just for the benefit of those that thought in that small box, let's say it like this.
Can maybe everyone mute who's not speaking?
Yes, exactly. So someone is not muted or is talking in the background. Can you see Peter or can you unmute?
I'll try to mute. I'm going to mute everyone.
Yeah.
Like, if it works.
There, if you have share split screen.
And I'm the only one that's not muted. Great discussion. And it's great that you're already in the bias discussion. We had a lot of, autonomous, adaptive, without it we will not be competitive, AI focused on learning processes, reasoning and self-correction, because it's already here. So we will share all of this material, what you've answered, but we already see some definitions from the course and also some definitions we've talked about. And I really love that you're getting so involved in this, about talking about processes and solving problems and things. And this is also a really interesting question. The Menti will keep it open, because I know not maybe everyone can have time to answer, but why do we need AI? That is really the important discussion we need to have. Not because AI is optional. It's going to happen whether management or CEOs or board members like it or not. But this is a discussion we need to have so that we can invest in the right things, so that we can focus on building the right services or products, because we're in a state right now in the world where we actually need AI, and we'll go in through that. We just share the new screen with you guys online as well.
Can I just share something from my group? So
yes.
we talked about that it is really important to think about the problems that we want to solve, and not just think about what data we can aggregate and then do it the other way around. So really focusing what are we solving and what do we want to achieve, and use the AI for. We had Jeanette from the Research Institute in my group. We had a very discussion about the European situation, that we in Sweden invest little in AI comparing to other countries and even to our neighboring countries. So that is an interesting input.
Yeah, that's and Jeanette, I know you. We're going to have this discussion about how we increase the amount of capital we invest in research and what we can do about that. But the reason we're going through this and the reason we're discussing this is it's because of chapter 2 and 3, but it's really because we need to understand AI. We need to understand problem solving. We need to understand how we attack problems and why it's so crucial to why we need AI. I would say it's a matter of solving a lot of these questions. A lot of the questions that we need to solve to still be the human race or continue the human race, but also to make the world a better place to live in for all. And that's why we're talking about AI for all. It's not that everyone needs to know how to develop AI, but through AI, with the help of AI technologies or with the help of technology and innovation, we can make the world a better place for all humans. So it's really about the UN Sustainable Goals, and I'm not going to. It's going to be an Einstein moment now. I feel it, but it's this is really heads on the nail here, because we can't solve problems with the same thinking as we had when we created them. And right now, if you look at a lot of the sustainability goals, we can't solve them without using technology, without using machine learning or looking into the data we have, finding solutions that we haven't seen before. And the world is filled with data. It might not always be qualitative data, but we need machine learning, we need technologies within the AI field to solve these challenges. So this is really why I work with what I do. This is really what I would like you to focus on when you're looking at problems, because there's a lot of problems in here that we need to solve, and we need to solve them now. And working with the AI, this is, I'm going to continue the Einstein moment here, but it's a matter of finding the right type of questions. We had that discussion today that for a lot of organizations, I know a lot of you, some of you work as consultants, but for a lot of organizations, AI is on the map, but it's more of a management group or the leading group of a company having that on their to-do list. We need to do AI things. We need to start an AI project. We need to do something within the field of AI. And we believe that that is the wrong way of attacking the problem. Instead, look at the problems you want to solve. Look at the challenges you have in front of you and ask yourself, okay, with that type of problem, what type of technologies can I use to solve those? And AI is definitely a part of that solution. So if you have the data, then you can use AI technologies to solve a lot, or with the help of AI technologies, you can solve a lot of those problems. And we're going to speed this part through, because you're going to go into the chapter 2 and 3 and look at this yourself. But what the fun thing with the Elements of AI courses here is talking about search problems. It's talking about problems you might not think are problems, because as you get into the field of AI, you start thinking about situations in life a bit differently. You start thinking about the factors of how you solve a problem. So for example, search problems, a lot of problems within computation can be divided into the search problem group. And that is really finding a path or finding a pattern based on where you stand and what the goal is. So if we look at, for example, Google Maps, then if you look for directions in a city, it accounts for the time. So one thing when we look at search problems is also looking at the cost of something. What is really the limited resource here? What do we want to maximize? Is it time? When it comes to Google Maps, for example, it accounts for time as the normal one. But if you're in a new city, for example, it could be cost. It will take you 45 minutes to walk there, but a cab is really expensive. That will take 10 minutes. So I'll walk because time is not my constraint. Or it could be that it's really hard. So going from number one to my goal could be really tiring, and I want to stay. I'm not going to sweat because I want to be fresh when I get at the office. So I'll rather take the cab because cost is not the constraint here. And sometimes we don't know. We don't know what the constraints are. We don't know the resources we lack. So we build other types of solutions. We're more in an exploratory phase. So when you're attacking a problem, try to think about, okay, what's really the problem here? Is it going from A to B, or is it going from A to B with a limited resource? And what is that resource? Because that is really something we need to find out when we try to solve AI problems or try to solve problems with the help of AI. That's a lot about the chapter, both chapter 2 and 3, because in AI research and all of the most innovative company within AI, they're all looking at games. They're all trying to solve games. IBM did this with Deep Blue during the 90s because chess couldn't be solved. But games are actually the perfect thing to try to solve. It's a perfect problem because you often have, especially when you have chess or even Go, that's a super hard game, because you have perfect information. You have two agents facing each other, and you have all of the information you need to do the next move. So in the setting of games, you know what the goal is. The goal is often to win. You know what you have, the resources you do have, and you know what rules to stand to or to play with. So when it comes to AlphaGo, even though it's really, really hard, that could be solved. When it comes to chess, it's also really hard, but it could be solved because we have perfect information. But a lot of stuff, a lot of problems we try to solve are cases where we absolutely do not have perfect information. We don't really know how, for example, the weather. Even though we can predict the weather, we don't really know exactly what the weather will be like in 1 year. So then we don't have perfect information to predict within 1 year. But we can still do predictions that are kind of accurate. So this is why a lot of AI companies have invested so much in games. And when you go through both the chapter 2 and 3, you will definitely follow games. And you will also do exercises with, it's called, is it called TikTok? TikTok. In TikTok. That's another AI service regarding, yeah, exactly. TikTok, we can talk about TikTok and data later on and how they gather data. But TikTok, tic-tac-toe. It's really hard saying fast. So you will learn based on the games, but this is just to show you how we predict, how we can use machine learning, and here is probabilities to predict the outcome of something. And this is basically what you do, the human brain does every day. But within AI, and when you go into the field of AI, if you're not working with it, you get an understanding of how you do things automatically. How you predict that something, if I drop something, that will fall, or if I do like that, the probability that I will throw this bottle up the table will increase if I start going towards it. So we think about probabilities all of the time, even though we're not conscious about it. And really, when we look at chess, for example, and why some games or problems are harder than others, it's about building super big decision trees. We have, and you will train on this, or you will try to do this yourself in the course, but it's about finding the ultimate position regarding the state you're in. So the current state, and predicting what will happen in the coming states. So that is something you can start thinking about when you're driving a car. My aha moment when I started working with AI was working together with the PhD students at Sinuity, now SenseAct. They just renamed themselves. But that they try to solve the problem of autonomous vehicles driving into it's called a circle spot. What's it called? Roundabout. Roundabout, exactly, a roundabout. And the things you do when you drive a car automatically is that, okay, you slow down, you stop, you look at the cars, and you predict, even though you're not using the position light, you predict where they're gonna go, which is really hard for a car or an autonomous system, because there's so many factors to take into account. But you do it after 2-3 years of driving automatically, and you do it without a problem. And that is a lot of probabilities in stake there. Okay, so you just count for, okay, that car is going that direction, that car is speeding up. So you do a lot of computation in your mind, and you're not even conscious about it. But if you look at a computer, and if you look at machine learning models and AI technologies to solve that, that is a really hard problem. But we can do it. To show a very simple decision tree, and I know some made it, or probabilities, you kind of exclude, and this is my fantastic handwriting, you kind of exclude the non-possible state and the non-possible ways to go. But this could also be wrong, because we need to get the predictions and the resources we need to take into account. So that's why we need to have a goal. We need to set boundaries for what type of solution we want to build. Otherwise, the models we're building will just try to maximize the value or the mission it has. And I know some of you might have seen this, but this is a really interesting case where AI gone wrong. So the task is actually really simple. It's about for a boat to drive through really tight, narrow, well, it's a lane, or it's in here. But instead of doing the task, which is meant to do, it tries to maximize score. So it just sets other boats on fire. It tries to collect, it kind of figures out that, okay, if I take the green ones, then I will maximize my score. And talking about ethics, this is when we're talking about AI, it's an old ethical question about the pay-per-click problem. So that if you put a machine to produce paper clips, it won't stop until it have produced paper clips out of everything in the world. So in the DeepMind podcast, they're using instead of paper clips, they're using stamps as a task there. It's about defining the right type of problem, but also it's about how a model acts in different environments. So if we have for example, why games are so good, this is also from DeepMind from the beginning. So here's Breakout, and Breakout is a very simple game. The ball has one task. So you can produce really simple algorithms to solve this game. And the computer, even though 16 hours of Breakout seems really boring and kind of, I wouldn't play that for 16 hours, but it still gets good really fast. But one thing that happened and where we see development is that if I were to change for a human, if I were to change levels here, or if I were to change the environment, a human could adapt to that, while a model can't. So this is also a reason why we need to understand what type of problem we're solving with the model we're building and the data we're training on. And that is why both the question about, okay, what is the problem we're solving, what data are we training on, in what environment, are so important. Because within, or not yet either way, but within machine learning, it's really hard moving one model from one setting or one environment and training on one type of data, and then moving into another type of environment and data.
So the machine here is learning something. What would the human do?
So what the model here does is that it understands really quickly that it needs to maximize the score. And if you're a really good breakout player, but you know that you are supposed to try to get the ball in the edges so that it kind of bounce from the top and down, so that the player doesn't have to do anything. So then you maximize the score because the red layer of bricks gives you more points. So it still tries to maximize the point, but this video is meant to show you that if you change, for example, the layers, or if you were to change the pixels here, if I were to move this brick or this the player node, so the player brick up like 1 or 2 pixels, the complete game will change, and the training it has done will kind of make it even will make it really, really bad on what it does. So we have to understand what we're training on, what type of problem we are trying to solve to be able to do efficient development, or have models that are using or solving real types of problems.
Yes, just one comment to that, game. So in the beginning, the computer just tries to get better at the game, but in the end, after like 300 hours of training, the AI makes own decision and gets a new strategy by doing a hole in the upper layer, so that, like Peter said, so that the ball comes on top and bouncing on top instead of from the bottom. It maximizes its score and removes the bricks much faster and wins the game.
So for great, Ivana. So for humans, for example, we have a lot of we have carrots and we have sticks. But humans have a lot of carrots. You have appreciation from others, social appreciation. You have pride. You have sugar. You have like the cake or the muffin. Do I want to go out running, or do I want to have a muffin? And my choices are affected by a lot of things. For models or machines, those the appreciation a model can get if it does something good is a 1, or it can get a 0, or in some cases it can get a -1. So what that strives for is ones. The model want to get promoted, or they want to get promotions all of the time. So after learning the game, it's set to maximize the score. And then after playing for a couple of hours, it finds what type of strategy it has to have to maximize the score. So that is really what we see in machine learning, and that's how we define, and that's why it's so important, so that we define the problem in the right way, so that we can have a solution that are in line with the problem. It's the carrot and the stick is it doesn't have a stick, but it has a carrot in form of either it gets paid a 1 or it doesn't get paid. So the model gets feedback. And the feedback is either 0 or 1, and it wants to get as many 1s as possible. Often. So we want to do just talk about this question real quickly, because problems are important before Justine takes the stage. So what are the problems? What problems are you solving with AI today? And I want to rephrase that question, because what we want to look into, okay, what type of problems would you like to solve? What type of problems would you like AI to be a part of solving in your life, or in your field, or for humanity in general? So let's take 4 minutes of that, and then we'll jump right back into hearing more about what Justine is doing. So group discussion here, and I'll divide everyone into breakout rooms.
Awesome. New groups. Ja, vi också.
Vad sa du? Ja. Ska vi köra sen står vi här med några?
Ja, våra stolar. Då är det mer casual.
Exakt.
New groups.
Peter, we are not being redirected yet.
No.
There we go.
For a lot of the problems we actually have a bunch of for everyone, but we don't know. Also for some cases like water, you hear a lot about water all the world. At the same time, like notice like water and like there's a lot of scarcity and situations where it's actually either about distribution or turning one resource to another where technology is no, but it talks a lot. Yeah, it talks a lot about like resource scarcity, but that's actually not true scarcity. It's more about how we distribute it. It's like that's one example around aluminium, like way back with like not only like 100 years backwards, it was like two scarce kids, and then it was like when kings did dinners, it was like some people got it free, and then it were really like in it was like only really rich like kings could collect, and like today is how you wrap it around your waist or like you throw it away or your hair is like treated as like so much of it you have abundance. And it's about like technology improvements for how to extend it from the earth. It's suggesting that we have messages thinking about how to get access to that abundance and then they reach it around that with a lot of other stuff as well. That are saying that actually maybe have abundance This year now I actually the lecture coming up with like all these debates and like you probably can tell if it's one individual because like the person who said something and like with these viral videos. To me, it's like very much the biggest focus of our university and making sure that I work for me, like the way the retail fashion industry is such a world
We're 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, online rooms.
Thank you. We have one question in the chats. So would you give any examples of how AI could be used in the field of finance and banking?
I saw that, and I think we will go into that actually later on if you have the time to stay, because I also saw there was a paper about AML and fighting fraud in the finance sector, and
yes.
they're on one of those cases. before that, before we go into that, I would like to present Sophie back on stage again.
That's
and
Josephine. I'll actually bring my chair. Yes, today we have Josephine here with us. Yay! We're gonna sit down and do this. Yep. But Josephine, you lead innovation and tech and your tech strategy at Accenture. Do you want to give a short introduction just to who you are and why you're here today, maybe?
Yes, happy to. And I think it was really nice with these different breakouts, because now it feels like I've been talking to a lot of you guys that are here in the physical room as is already, but happy to do an introduction also for the virtual room. But my name is Justine Olson. I work at a company called Accenture. If you're not familiar with that company, we are a big consultancy firm, a global company, a very big one. We have 500,000 employees, so really it's almost hard to take in, but a very global company with a quite broad range of services, everything from more technology IT focus to more management consulting and strategy. And I work at a part of Accenture called Technology Strategy, where I'm Europe lead for our area around future tech, which is then very focused on emerging technologies, such as, for example, AI, but really passionate about the intersect, I would say, with exponential technologies, innovation, and sustainability. So really, I think the presentation you just had was really aligned to my passion as well, on how we can apply all these new technology opportunities that we have to solve important problems.
Awesome, that's really exciting. And I know that you're working in a lot of various fields, going back to the finance question before, and you also mentioned retail to me. Do you want to speak a little bit more about some of the projects that you have been working on and like related to the different verticals that that AI can be applied in, and really how it's applied in practice?
Yeah, no, but happy to. But I think at Accenture, our clients is big companies, but from all different industries. I personally focus quite a lot on retail and consumer goods, but we work across industries. And I would say when we work with our clients with AI, we do so from primarily perhaps two different perspectives. And sometimes it's very much like use case focused when we are looking at areas on how to apply AI. Maybe it's a new area for them and they want to develop a proof of concept and try out to see if this is really they were expecting from the beginning. And of course, later on. So the use case areas is one way of
Peter, I'm sorry to disrupt. Could you please put all participants in the virtual room on mute? Yes. And could you also move the mic a bit closer to Josephine? We would really like to hear what she's telling.
Awesome.
Excellent.
How about now? Can you hear us well?
Yes, so, for me it's better. Thank you very much. Continue.
Fantastic. So the use case area is really one way, but then the other area that I think is very interesting as well is how we can help our clients to build the foundation to work with AI in a more industrialized way themselves. And that can mean everything from helping them to define the strategic ambition with AI, working with their leadership teams to really understand what is the opportunities within AI within this company, how to set up the operating model, how should they organize, how should they understand between all these different opportunities, how to prioritize, and also a lot, of course, around the skill building to help increase awareness and skills within that company on helping people to really see the opportunities. A lot of what you are doing here in this course. A lot of companies have obviously seen this opportunity, but needs to make sure that that their workforce is really aware and have the knowledge required to be able to see the opportunities. And we very much work from the perspective that you were talking a little bit about before, to really tackle it from the business problem perspective. So I usually think about it as we come in with a toolbox where we have different type of solutions, and then deep dive into the problem. And in many cases, like AI could be one part of the solution, and maybe from the beginning, they usually think that AI is the solution for maybe everything. But when you deep dive a little bit more into the problem, you might realize that in many cases, AI is actually not the best way of solving this problem. It's maybe around just improving the process or having people talking with each other. Maybe it's something around collaboration, or it can be solved with more simpler basic automation technologies. And in some cases,
how often would you say that that's the case? That it's,
I think as we talked
more
a little
simple than you think, rather than more complicated than you expect.
I would say more often than it's quite often that happens, that you maybe overestimate the complexity of the problem, or that you are not really fully understanding also the requirements to be able to apply AI in an efficient way. Like data, access to qualitative data is of course a very common problem, that you don't really understand the amount of data needed to really be able to apply machine learning in an impactful way. A lot of problems that a lot of companies are facing are actually coming down to a lot of human factors in many cases, that again, sometimes it's just about collaborations and talking between different units and breaking down the silos. And sometimes AI can be a solution, but not always.
Yeah. And what would you say, like we've been speaking about this before, that it's important to involve everyone in the room, not only data scientists, AI researchers, and machine learning engineers, but also the leaders, as we were speaking about before. And you also have more of a leadership background rather than maybe a machine learning one. How important would you say that it is for the people that you're working with, that they really understand AI? And is your experience that a lot of people actually don't know the level of AI, or maybe the quality of their data, and also what are the most important skills that they need to have in this to understand how to be able to apply AI?
No, but I believe it's very important that all people in a company understands AI to a certain degree, because I believe it's hard for us now to understand the type of impact that it will have on all companies and on all industries. So if we leave people behind on that knowledge transfer, I think that's not an option as I see it. So to a certain degree, I think this is very much knowledge or insight that everyone needs to have. But when we work a lot with leadership teams, it's of course important, like the most important part for them is to understand the opportunities and the direction that they want to take the company, and then perhaps understand what type of skills that they need to attract to the company to be able to take this journey. And often, I guess, they tackle that in two different ways. One is, of course, to upskill their current workforce, but a very big challenge for a lot of larger companies is to how to attract these different type of skill sets, since it's a scarce resource, and a lot of the people with very deep competence in this area, they are maybe attracted more to like a startup environment, or areas where they are perhaps more faster and can apply more advanced techniques faster than in a perhaps a bigger company. So understanding the skills required and what type of journey that will be for that company is, I guess, the important message to get across more from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and I think both upskilling and attracting talent has been a very big theme now during the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you want to speak a little bit more about concrete applications that you have been working on, maybe as an effect of the pandemic?
Yeah,
and how
sure.
AI can be applied in that setting.
Yeah, no, but I think as for all crises, I think this one for sure has really been an accelerator for innovation. And I think it's quite amazing actually to see all the stuff that has happened. And I can share some examples of the projects that we've been working on. I was discussing with one of you before around the collaboration that we are doing with Telia. It's an open partnership, so we can talk about it externally as well. But it's around how to leverage crowd insights and how to leverage data from like GPS data from our phones to be able to track our positioning, and through that be able to look into our travel movements as a part of the pandemic. And this is a collaboration that we've been working for quite some time. So that was started before the pandemic, but more looking then at other type of applications. But through that, you could then look into how our travel movements in, for example, Stockholm changed when the pandemic arose and when these different travel restrictions was starting. And you could actually see how people's movements were changing, reducing a lot of the movements in the city center as both stores were closing down and people were not going to the offices, and then movement in other areas such as perhaps more where people had their summer cottage or that type of areas, the activity actually arose. And it's quite interesting what type of analysis and how you can look into that type of data and what you can do with that, and actually seeing how people's patterns are changing.
And what did you use this for? Like, did you take it to some sort of level where you could predict that, okay, we think that this is what's going to happen next? Or could you give this information? Who received this information and were able to use it for the pandemic?
Yeah, no, so we did collaborations with a lot of the different government organizations, such as Folkhälsomyndigheten and these type of organizations, to look into when they did new communications and other type of
to see if people follow the
how
guidelines
people actually,
or not.
exactly,
okay.
And how can you with a certain if a certain information is sent out, what effect does that have, and how can you predict, as you are saying, how people will change their movements as an effect of that. So that's, I think, one interesting example. Another area that I'm very passionate about myself is around mental well-being. That's been an initiative that we've been working on already before COVID, but that, of course, is now more relevant than ever, and people talk about it a lot. I'm really interested about this intersection between humans and machines and how we can find that balance with technology. So we are driving an initiative that we are calling the Humanity Innovation Challenge, where it's an open challenge that we drive together with some partners, where we are looking for innovations around how AI can be applied to address mental well-being. So we had a first round of this last year, and then we had a very interesting winner that looked into how to leverage data from journals when people are visiting psychologists when they are into quite deep depression treatments, and leveraging that type of data to be able to predict suicide risk at a more early stage. And this year we have some very exciting finalists this year as well. And I think that's another application area that I think is very interesting. How can you leverage data from everything from social media to other health tracking devices and so on to be able to do a deep analysis on making us feel better in these challenging times where mental well-being is more important than ever.
Exactly, and especially related both to the pandemic, but also in general in terms of social media and social dilemma that we've been speaking a lot about here. What other applications do you see, especially in mental health, that AI will have in like the upcoming years? Or what do you think, maybe in general as well, what do you think are the biggest applications for AI and that you see as the most interesting ones the coming years?
Around health, again, I had an interesting conversation already before today. I think the area of femtech and how you can combine the whole health area as such, I think is super interesting, but how we can combine these different tracking devices, data, and the gadgets to be able to understand more about ourselves. I just saw today, like Natural Cycles announced this announcement that they will now start with a wearable, and I think that whole area will just increase a lot, which I think is very, very interesting. And
also about the data you collect. Did anyone watch the latest Apple event? And they were, exactly. And they were speaking a lot about the Apple Watch, and sorry to interrupt you, where you collect data and also you can predict, okay, you're actually about to have a cardiac arrest, and they could get help beforehand and those kind of things. So yes.
And like tracking, we were talking about combining those different tracking devices with the information about how you have lived your week, like what type of people have you been with, and what type of events have you been going through, what creates stress for you, what creates focus, to try to understand from a data and insight perspective how you can optimize your life to actually feel better and be more focused and not as stressed.
Yes.
I think that was a quite interesting thought that we had a conversation about earlier as well.
Scary in one way about that, like optimizing your life, which is a lot about what we're doing, but also good for us if it can improve our health.
Yeah, maybe it's like one friend that every time you meet that friend, your stress level is like,
Yeah,
a lot, like maybe like, yeah, but yeah, maybe I should take action on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. If it helps me feel better, then it should. And then, you know, okay, this is based on data, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're focusing a lot of Europe as well. Like how,
Yeah.
and everyone speaks about, okay, Sweden being this big ecosystem, and we have all the great startups. Do you see any different trends in Europe compared to the rest of the world in terms of AI applications, and how far ahead we are? Are we further ahead than anyone else, or what are your insights there?
Yeah, I think like you usually talk about that topic quite a lot, I think, in these events, and the conversation usually goes around the differences between the different markets and how the different global markets take a bit of a different approach to AI, which is of course very interesting, with the US being very much driven from these big corporates, and the Asian market, and with China being more driven from the States. And then we have Europe and the Nordics that of course have a little bit of a different approach, with much stronger regulations on how you can treat your personal data and GDPR and so on, which is of course a limitation in one way of seeing it. But I truly believe around the context of turning that into an advantage, and I think the Nordics can play a quite interesting role in really taking a lead on both, I would say, applying AI in a responsible way, but also combine it with the SDG angle again. How can we leverage AI to really solve the important problems, and not only perhaps optimizing business models and systems that are not working today, but rather try to leverage this technology to take leaps in areas such as sustainability, and such as diversity, and such as all the different SDGs. So yes, Europe has a very interesting role to play there, and the Nordics, I would say, also as a part of Europe. Yes, we have a disadvantage, of course, with the amount of data that we have being less, and the ways we can leverage that data, of course, also being a bit more restricted. But I truly believe in making that an advantage. And I think another thing that I think we are strong at in the Nordics and Sweden, perhaps in particular, is around the ecosystem collaboration, because if we should really take the leap on solving those important problems, that's not something that will be driven only by companies, or only by startups, or only by academia, but it's really about that ecosystem collaboration and combining different strengths from different angles.
I completely agree, and I think it's something that we all should leverage within our companies as well. And speaking about privacy, as you're saying as well. I know we're running over time. I want to open up for questions to the audience, both here in the physical room, but also in the virtual room. Maybe we can start here in the physical, and then we can monitor the virtual.
Yes, we have a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay, let's start there instead, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and insights. So the first question from the chat is from Alexandra. Related to Telia partnership and GEO, what kind of ethical considerations did you make?
Very good question, because obviously when you hear about this the first time, at least I did, I was a bit scared, like, okay, so you are using then GPS data from phones, but the way this solution works is that it's of course only aggregated level, it's only data on an aggregated level, so it's not that you can see as a part of the solution one individual and how they are moving, but only on an aggregated level and an anonymized, of course. So there's, of course, very important ethical considerations to be made in this type of projects, and that is the way we have been working together with Telia in this context. And again, coming back to the conversation we just had, I think this is the type of application where we can really take the lead in the Nordics and in Europe to showcase that it is actually possible to apply AI in a responsible way and still provide very interesting insights, such as in this case where the interesting part or the problem that you would like to solve is more how we move on an aggregated group level, not how individuals are moving by themselves. So hope that clarifies.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question there that is kind of from the same topic. How does Josephine mean that Europe will make the regulations about personal data, GDPR, an advantage?
And I think that is exactly coming back to that.
That is exactly what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that question. But I think to me, it's about trust in the end. And if we are successful in really building that trust, that the companies that we see here in the Nordics, that they are actually leveraging the trust of the customers' data in a way that feels good for you as a customer. I believe in the long run that trust will be very important, and where we could see that some of our Swedish and Nordic companies are get that competitive advantage in comparison then to maybe some companies that are losing that trust very, very quickly now by not treating their customers' data in a responsible way.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that point, I think it can also be just by being placed within the Nordics or Europe, you know that, okay, we are GDPR compliant, we protect your integrity and your privacy, whereas just by being from another region, as you're saying, this may be a disadvantage, and someone may select a European company just because of this factor. And this is really how we should view it and put it out there in our marketing efforts as well when we communicate about this.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very important and good point. Thank you. There is one more question. Disruptive AI, what applications do you see for maximum optimization?
Sorry, for
maximum optimization.
In general, I guess I interpret that question.
For disruptive AI, what applications do you see being used to disrupt the most?
Yeah, no, but I can share an example of a project that a broad question, but I like it. Then I will interpret the question. Then you'll get a specific. I choose to answer in a specific way by talking about a project I'm currently working on, which is then within retail. I talked a little bit previously around computer-generated images or 3D visualizations, where if you look at e-commerce today, it's actually quite boring how a lot of companies are displaying their products. It's often 2D images. If you are lucky, maybe like it's on a model, or you can see how this product is really used. But now with COVID again, the e-commerce is of course booming, and there it's a very interesting application area on how to leverage CGI or computer-generated images to produce really high qualitative 3D visualizations of different products. This is a technique that's been used quite for a long time in certain industries, such as, for example, automotives and rather expensive products like expensive watches. But it's too expensive to do these very high qualitative images for less expensive products. But what we're seeing, if you combine CGI with AI and are able to, through that, automate a lot of that content production, you could actually make it feasible to develop these super qualitative pictures also for less expensive products, such as more used consumer goods and fashion items and so on. And that I think is super interesting, and it also adds on a lot of like personalization aspects. Like I work with a startup called Unspun. They are doing 3D scanning of your body, and then you get the perfect pair of jeans designed just for you. And I'm rather tall, so it's quite hard for me to find perhaps jeans that are my size. and through this I can get my perfect pair of jeans, and if you would combine that with the CGI technology and actually able to then see that specific product on me, on my digital avatar, and you could do that at scale by leveraging AI, that is really taking a leap in terms of personalization and in making product experiences more inclusive, but also more interesting. So not sure if that was a good answer to your question, but to me that's rather disruptive and interesting application area that I'm currently working on.
Thank you. I have one more question that I'm super interested in. So we have talked about the technology. My question is about the people. So how do you get leaders in traditional fields of business to understand that AI is important, to invest in AI, to recruit the right people, to make the change, and also to set the right culture? Because innovation doesn't, if you want to be innovative, you're going to fail and you're going to make mistakes, and that has to be okay. And in usually traditional companies, that is usually not okay, and people are afraid to make mistakes. So how do you get the leaders and create the culture needed?
Yeah, but it's a tricky question, of course, but I'm a true believer of like seeing is believing. And the way we are usually approaching this is try to find like just one use case or one way of applying this so that people can see for themselves that it's actually possible to do this already now, and leverage that as a bridge maker to help people understand and see perhaps the longer value is, I think, one way of more trying to pitch the AI value part of things. In terms of the culture, and you talk about the importance of making a culture where people can dare to try new things and fail. That is, of course, coming back to a lot of like leadership questions where I think it goes broader than just talking about AI and innovation, but it's really around this next leadership leap that we need to take from many different perspectives, where I think the new generation is demanding a different type of leadership, which is more personal and human, and with a different style perhaps than we have seen in the past. So not sure I have all the answers to that, but I think it's I really like what I'm seeing with a lot of younger generations coming up being more fearless and have a different mindset than that is, I think, changing how a lot of companies are acting in this space. But I agree with you that mindset shift is very important and will be critical for us to succeed with scaling AI in the Nordics as such. But I don't have all the answers to that.
But it was a very good answer. Yeah.
Have any final questions from the physical room here?
We have one question there.
Yes.
So using new technology is usually very expensive.
Yes.
And hopefully down the line it gets cheaper. Do you have an idea of how much money has been spent on that exact research project or collaboration as you were talking about with the Telia company and Accenture? I'm just curious of what kind of money went into that.
Yeah, but obviously I can't disclose the budget. No, but I can't, of course, disclose the budget in that specific project. But yes, if you're gonna scale AI, yes, that can, of course, that requires investment, right? But I think you can also do quite a lot with quite a little if you. It's all a matter of how you scope it, of course, and not being scared to start little is, I think, a good thing. And again, coming back to this, seeing is believing. Like if you're gonna convince your leadership team that we're gonna invest a lot of money in this area, I think what usually helps is, of course, evidence and being able to showcase for real that yes, we truly believe in this area, and this is why we should invest. And then having that that example of how you have already started could help in that convincing. So doing AI at scale, yes, it's complex and requires both a lot of skills and a lot of time. But I don't think you need to go for that big scale-up journey from the start. You could also start small and scale from that, which would then maybe not need as much investment from the start.
But in this particular case, was it an R&D investment from the two of you, or was it a Swedish government ask?
Yes, no, it was not the Swedish government from the beginning, but then it was more around our joint collaboration in many different areas around how we can leverage the data that company have access to drive value from different perspectives. So more from joint collaboration and co-creation between us.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I'm sure that there are loads of more questions and a lot of things that we could continue to talk about. I think this is super interesting. And Josephine, thank you so much for coming today and taking the time off and sharing these insights with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And I'm going to hand it back to Peter.
Yes.
Josephine, this is really interesting. We have actually a project where we need to talk about the psychology and health project. We have some more cases to go through, but I think we're going to save them until next time. One thing that is really interesting in this case is the dialogue, is the discussion, and that we get real cases. We're talking a lot about the management perspective, and one thing we will add in the learning list or learning playlist is the transformational handbook, AI transformational handbook written by Andrew Ng at Stanford University. He's the one that really forced in AI in Google and Baidu. So he has a couple of points are from a management perspective, this is what you should do. This is the best practice. And we want to push for the AI Crash Course Drive. We want to push for the Slack so that we can join the community. If you have question, just pulls in the corner afterwards. Otherwise, I'm so happy you were here. And we will. It's a lot of. I'm going to stop using the old men now, but it's legend. So when you think about problems, think about the Alan Turing. This is in his paper from the 1950s. Anything that can be computed can be automated. So anything that we can turn into numbers or math or something that we can use AI for. So if you're really good at trying to define the problems, define what questions you're asking yourself, then we can find that data and hopefully solve that problem with the help of AI. So thank you so much for today. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Josephine. We will have a lot of discussions, and I think you're going to get back. Ivana?
One last question. So if I missed a session, where can I get the recordings?
Yes, you will find them in the AI Crash Course Drive. There's also links to the YouTube. So we have an own YouTube playlist. So the link is in the Drive, and otherwise you will find it on AI Sweden's YouTube channel. We'll make sure to send out the link to that as well. So you all will get a very dense email from me tomorrow morning. Is there any more questions online?
No, there are two questions to you, Josephine, but yeah, her time is up, so no more questions.
We will go through the financing case and how to use AI for AML and fraud detection next time. We'll be here in 2 weeks again, then with a new guest. Josephine, you're very much welcome to join us. Then we can have a small session with you as well. Then, and thank you so much for joining, both here physically and online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll stay and mingle both online and here if you want to.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for coming and for engaging and discussing and being active in the chat and in the breakout room. Super good to see so many awesome women. Any more questions about the course or about women in AI? No? Okay, then thank you all for today.
Maybe I'm gonna ask one question, like, because I have a friend who is also interested, but I guess it's a little bit late for her to jump in. So are you gonna do more courses like that afterwards? Do you plan anything?
Yes, yeah. So she can still register for in Sweden AI to I think participate in the following courses. But yes, you're right. So Women in AI will facilitate these courses regularly. So next cohort will be in January. So we will do the same setup with the discussions, the meetings, and in parallel with the elements of AI. So there will be more opportunities to join and discuss AI for sure.
Then I'll try to be the best advertiser for you.
Oh, great. That sounds awesome. Super good.
I'll try to get all the Umeå University girls be interested, because it's awesome.
That is super great. That is our mission, to increase knowledge and awareness within AI. Great.
And they can still join into the third session and be a part of it.
Yeah, so they can just register on the Sweden AI webpage. And the link is also in the chat. Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for sharing and participating. Any more questions or reflections, comments?
Oh, this was very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck with your project, Ines. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.
Great, Ivana. I'll shut down the recording.
Sounds good.